Today we're going to be talking about one thing that will help you elevate your mixes and give you some life in your tracks, and that is sidechain. So now you might have heard the term sidechain and it might sound intimidating to you, but I want to let you know that it's not rocket science. At its core, sidechaining is super simple. It's using one signal to affect the dynamics of another signal. Think of it like this. One sound is politely asking another sound to duck or get out of the way. Politely, not like ludicrous. Today we're going to talk about some of the common ways of doing it and then some of the ways that are not so common in doing it that will help you understand sidechain and actually use it in your own mixes as well. One of the most common ways to do sidechain is using it on your bass and having the kick trigger the sidechain so that the bass gets out of the way when the kick comes in place. So first things first, you're going to need a compressor. So let's just grab Logic's compressor. Right now I just threw the Logic compressor on here. I normally like to go to the Studio FET because it's the fastest reacting one, and I just want the fastest reacting one so I can play with the attack and release to adjust the speed of that. We put a compressor on the signal that we want to get out of the way. And then we choose a signal that will be the source, the trigger. What we got to do is go here, click on this drop-down menu, and then select the track that we want to be the trigger. So for this, in this first example, is actually using the kick to get the sample out of the way or the bass out of the way. So we'll just find my kick, which is right here, OSNB Dracula kick. Great, audio 6. And now, if we take a look at the compressor and we take a listen to this while we solo, you'll see that this is moving out of the way every time the kick is playing. Now you can see it on this graph as well. Every time the kick comes in, we can make it even more extreme by playing with the attack and release. 0 milliseconds is faster, 200 milliseconds is slower. Notice how that changes the shape there. Same thing with the release. 5 milliseconds is slower or faster, 5K is slower. So usually I like to set this pretty fast, like 5 milliseconds for the attack, and then mess around with the release to get the right pump. Now, one thing to consider when you're doing this is that you have to look at your kick, right? So let's take a look at my kick here. And we have to look at how long that kick is. Oh, let's go here. So my kick is right here, the Dracula kick. And I selected this kick because it's pretty short. It's a great kick. So whatever trigger signal you're using to trigger the sidechain, the length of that will actually be something that you need to pay attention to. Normally, most producers, I learned this from Afrojack and I learned this from other people, they'll use a short signal and then play with the attack and release in order to get it right. Or they'll just use something like Volume Shaper or Nicky Romero's sidechain plugin or something like that. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like with and without it really quick, just as it is, the way we set it. So this is without it. So it kind of works okay. Now let's listen to it with it on. The kick is a little bit more prominent, but that's the most common scenario in using it. When you use like the kick drum to get the bass drum out of the way in house music, it's that 4 on the floor, super easy pumping kind of effect. And another way that you can use this is using it to make space for another instrument. So for example, if you have like a vocal and your vocal's not really cutting through, you've done all your EQ, you've kind of compressed it, but it's still not kind of cutting through and you want it to have a little bit more space, you can use your vocal to actually make space. So let's say I have this lead vocal right here, right? We take a listen to this. This is an unreleased track. Shout out to, well, I made this, but it's an unreleased track. And let's say we want this to cut through. So we could do the same thing where we find a vocal to make space and we just put it on another set of instruments. Same concept, but it's just using a different trigger signal, if that makes sense. Let's take our vocal, so which is vocal lead high audio 32. We add the sidechain on there. every time my vocal hits, these guitars duck out. So if I take a listen, if I remove the vocal, every time my vocal is going, you hear this kind of duck out. Now for this is a little bit intense. So I'll probably loosen up the knee or the threshold here, so it's not as hard. The lower this number, negative number, the harder this thing will hit, because this threshold is like the amount of volume that it will take for the thing to start working. So yeah, this song actually goes pretty hard. So yeah, so anyway, you can, that's another way that you can use sidechain. You can use it to make your guitar sit better over your mix, your drum mix, or your overheads or something, or you can use a vocal to help the vocal kind of have some space a bit. So the one thing you want to be careful of is having it be too harsh, because it could sound really bad and overdone if you do it too much. So here's another cool way to use sidechain on your tracks. You can actually take a compressor and use a sidechain on your bus tracks that have your reverbs or delays. So now this works best if you do it on a bus track. So as you can see here, I have bus 1 that's going to Valhalla delay, and then bus 2, it's also another Valhalla delay, but we'll just do this one right here. So Valhalla delay on bus 1, right? And let's take a listen to what it's doing. And you can also take a sidechain on there. So let's go put a compressor on that one. And then let's select vintage FET or studio FET, either one. And we'll turn off the auto gain. We don't want it to do auto gain. Turn off the auto attack and release. And then what we do is we'll take our vocal signal. So say, for example, we want the vocal to go through, and then after the vocal is done, we want it to, expand. So actually I'll do this. I'll show you this on the verse because there's less words and there's more gaps. This usually works really well when you have a vocal where there's like gaps in between them, and you'll be able to hear how it like pumps and fills in the vocal. So let's take a listen to this and we'll set it up. So here's the... I'm going to exaggerate this so you can hear it a little bit better. So let's see. Let's turn this up, actually. Okay, cool. So you can hear that. So now what I'm going to do is take the lead vocal that you're hearing and use that as the sidechain trigger for this. So use this. And then I will adjust my ratio to kind of 4:1 to 1, and that's kind of aggressive. And then I'm going to bring the threshold way down. And then I'm going to bring the release pretty high, even higher than that. And you see how you get in that curve of volume? So let's do it a little bit more, and then we'll actually make it a little bit more intense. Let's actually put a reverb on here and make it a little bit more, aggressive. Yeah, you hear it kind of like swells in. You could do this really cool effect. So Now, if I did it with just the delay, we can make the delay less of a reverb. So we bring the diffusion down, and let's make this dual, and we'll just do something a little bit different on this side. We'll do 1/4, and then we'll kind of open it up a little bit. See how it swells it? Which is pretty cool. Now, if I did it with it off, see how it stays there? This is a really cool way to make like, just make your reverbs a little bit more dynamic with the song and kind of feel like you're pulling people in. It's super great, especially if I did it right. So this is a great thing to do when you have like trance synths. It's a big thing that they do in trance music, and something that you can do on pretty much any, like it was a big thing in big room music when, you know, back in the day, super long ago, but you can use this trick to add kind of interest in your reverbs and in your tracks to kind of fill up those empty spots if you need something kind of cool. So it's a great way to use that. So try this with a bunch of different plugins. You could do this with mostly every Logic plugin. I think actually pretty much every Logic plugin you can put the sidechain on. It has that sidechain function. And there's some other plugins that also apply that, like those third-party plugins. Try out different compressors, try out different ways to do it, and you'll actually find that you'll find some really cool creative techniques to be able to get your mixes to sound a little cleaner, more punchy, more lively, and breathing in a good way. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and hit the like button, because it helps the algorithm know that people like us like the content like this. So I hope that helped, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.